Namaskaram.
Karam, sir.
And very good morning to all. Actually, I am traveling and I am not very sure about my connectivity. Uh, if something happens in between, like a break in line or something like that, we will stop that there and we will do it in our next session. Chaturmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. रागादिरोगान् सततानुषक्तान् अशेषकाय प्रसृतान् अशेषान् औत्सुक्यमोह आरदिदान् जघान यो पूर्ववैद्याय नमोऽस्तु तस्मै. Please mute your microphones so that we can have an uninterrupted session. Some mics are still creating problem.
Mute mode.
Vijay Nandan, somebody who has come with Vijay Nandan, please take care. Please
Yes,
mute
yes, sir.
yourself. Okay. So in our last session, actually we are discussing about this dosha vruddhi, dosha kshayam. We are trying to understand it in a very finer sense. And in our last session, we saw that even though the shariram is dosha dhatu mala moolam, and when we talk about the nourishment, the poshanam of shariram, we often use the word dhadu poshanam, not dosha poshanam or mala poshanam. Regarding dhadu, we have many interesting usages like poshaka dhadu, posha dhadu, dhadu poshanam, dhadu poshana nyayam, etc., etc. But the same concept we hardly find with the dosha or mala. We do not use something like a normal procedure like this is mala poshanam or this is dosha poshanam. Instead, we use that there is dosha vruddhi, there is dosha kshayam, and now the doshas are sama. Or same is the case with the mala. And we saw that some supporting pramana in this regard from Charaka Samhita. Vividham, Ashitam, Pidam, Leedham, Ghadidam. That means the 4 ways of aharas. Jandoho hitam andaragni sandhukshida bale. And of course, there are many conditions given. How does it occur? It is a system. And yadhasvena ushmana samyak vipachyamanam kalavad anavasthita sarvadhadu pagam. That is also important. Anubahata sarvadhadu ushmamaruta srotaha. So many multiple factors are coming. Anupahata sarvadhadu ushmamaruta srotaha. Kevalam shariram upachaya balavarna sukhayusha yojayati sharira dhayadi cha. So we found that Sharira Dhadun Urjayadi, Sharira Dhadun Poshayadi. What about doshas? Malas, okay. They are the natural byproducts of this process of Dhadu Poshanam. That is very nice to know, and that is must to know that how these malas are formed and how they are operating and what is their role. So these finer aspects we will come sooner. Now our point of discussion is what is happening to the dosha. So doshas are to be, and we had many interesting discussions earlier about doshas, and we put forward some ideas like see, doshas are agencies operating in a living body which continuously portray the ways in which the Panchabhutas organize, the ways in which the Panchabhutas organize in order to deliver the fundamental functions of a living body. That means to accumulate, to transform, and to transport, to distribute. Transportation. So accumulation, transformation, and transportation. So how do the Panchabhutas organize so as to deliver these three fundamental functions? That is what the doshas are portraying. And I was using the term that doshas are agencies. Meantime, they also portray the way in which the dhadus work. Again, somebody has switched on their mic. Please mute. So the doshas also portray the ways in which the dhadus work. Also, the ways in which avayavas or avayava vyavasthas and srodasas operate. These are all reflected by the three doshas. That is the interesting part, or the most fascinating part about the Tridosha Siddhanta. Because by observing one dosha, an observer gets somewhat a clear picture about a specific set of functions. A specific set of functions. I think I will have to keep on muting people. Dr. Kala, Zoom user, please mute yourself. It is a big disturbance. Then, so what I mentioned is somebody who is observing a dosha is actually observing a specific set of functions. It is not just about something very precise, one point. When you observe Vayu in the Sharira, you are observing a specific set of functions in the Sharira. It is not about any one point. Similarly, when you are looking or observing keenly a dosha, you are also yielding information about the integrity of the structures involved in those functions. I repeat, while observing a dosha, we are also observing the integrity of the structures involved. When we are observing Vayu, I told that we are observing a specific set of functions. Now I say that apart from that specific functions, we are also observing the structural integrity of the avayavas involved behind the operation of those functions. See, we are observing Vayu, we find that, okay, Hridayam is operating a specific set of functions. We find Pakvashayam is operating. We find Jihva is operating. While talking, Jihva is operating. Such many things. Similarly, when you are understanding that, okay, Hridayam is operating by observing Vayu, we are also observing the structural integrity of the avayava called Vayu, Hridaya, or the structural integrity of the avayava called Pakvashaya. That is also observed, and that is also yielded. And while we are observing one dosha, we are observing a specific set of functions, the integrity of the structural part behind those functions, And above all, it's that interconnectedness of that set of functions with other sets of functions in the body at any specific point of time and space, or kala and desha. So when I observe Vayu, we get a set of functions like, okay, Hridaya is delivering certain functions, Pakwasya is delivering certain functions, Hastam, Padam, these are delivering set of functions. So they all come under one group, one set. Also, we observe the structural integrity of these avayavas by observing Vayu. And also, by observing Vayu, we observe the interconnectedness of the functions of Vayu with other sets of functions happening in the body. When we observe the functional integrity of Hridaya, we are also observing the structural integrity of the Hridaya and also its interconnectedness with many other functions in the Sharira, which need not be delivered by the agency called Vayu. So other agencies like Pitta or Kapha. So by observing the doshas, we are observing a living body in its multiple planes. So what happens? This observation of doshas makes the understanding of Sharira somewhat basic, elementary, simple, which is otherwise so complex. Of course, there can be many allegations in this regard. That means when you are we claim that by observing doshas, we are getting the fundamental idea about everything related to the Sharira. Nice. And that is so simple. And that simplicity can be alleged as the limitation as well. You are getting something, but it is so simple. Sharira is so complex. That can be an allegation also. Fine, we take it for granted. But for all operational purposes, for all investigative purposes, for all explorative purposes, this fundamental idea is working. That is the advantage of it. From that, you can go to any level, doesn't matter. But you get somewhat a precise idea about a system called Sharira and its subsystems. So this is one important idea about dosha. And then only, see, still we are yet to come to that idea. What is dosha vriddhi? What is dosha kshaya? So above and over all these explanations of doshas, they also portray the capacity of a Sharira to receive, to process, and to assimilate, the capacity of a Sharira to receive, process, and assimilate the bhutas of the loka to make it the bhutas of the Purusha. Doshas also portray the capacity of a Sharira to process, to receive first, to process it and to assimilate the bhutas of the loka, which was otherwise a foreign thing, to make it the bhutas of the Purusha. Yes, that is, doshas give a clear idea about how a system called Agni is operating in the Sharira. Actually, while explaining the doshas in the Ayush Kamiyam, we find these things are highlighted. We do not understand why these things are highlighted. Like te vyabino bihrunnabhyo radho madhyordhva samshrayaha, or tair bhaved vishamastikshno mandaschagni samay samaha, or koshthak kruro mrudur madhyaha madhyasyattai samay samaha. Why these things are highlighted? Many others also could have been highlighted, we feel. But these are the basic things with which the bhudas of the loka is becoming the bhudas of the Purusha. So that way, a system, the system of Agni, is of utmost importance. And that is why when we formulate some sort of a concept of Tridoshas, when we formulate the concept of Tridoshas, how that can be used to understand the very basic operations of a living body, that is very crucial. And that is why this Koshta, or the distribution of the doshas, or the Agni, how these things are influenced by the doshas, are going to be of primary importance. Now, we take all these things for granted. All these points are taken for granted. No issue. Now, let us look further deep into understand what is dosha kshaya, or what is dosha buddhi. See, dosha kshaya, from the primary meaning of the term, means that a state in which a dosha fails to manifest its lakshanas optimally. Samyak. Dosha kshaya is a state wherein a dosha fails to manifest itself optimally with its lakshanas. With its lakshanas. That is the meaning of dosha kshaya in its very basic sense. I have to mute the people in between. Actually, that is a very huge distraction. I'm missing the flow. Sorry for that. People have kept their mics on. Okay. So, dosha kshaya makes the dosha unable to manifest optimally in terms of its lakshanas. We find direct pramanas for all these statements, like yadha balam yadha swamcha doshaha vruddhaha vitannvate rupani jahadi kshinaha. Jahadi kshinaha. So, kshina doshaha, kshinaha doshaha rupani jahadi. That it's a pramanam. It is what we find in the textbooks. So, doshas which are jahadi, rupani jahadi, doshas which are kshina, abandon their lakshanas, quit their lakshanas, give away their lakshanas. That is the simple and straightforward understanding of dosha kshaya. When the bhuta gunas, please come with me. When the bhuta gunas that correspond to a particular dosha, we have seen it earlier. When those bhuta gunas run short of what is optimal, then that particular dosha is notified as kshina. I am explaining the same idea with a mild twist. I am trying to connect it with the status of doshas. We saw that jahadi kshinaha. Kshinaha doshaha rupani jahadi. So I am twisting it to say that when we say that a dosha is kshina, that means the corresponding bhuta gunas of that dosha, they run short of what we understand as optimal. Then only the dosha is notified as, okay, Vayu is Kshina, notified. Kabha is Kshina. When we say that Bhuta gunas run short, actually that means Bhutas run short. Because, for simple reason, because gunas do not exist independently. Gunas are always dravyasrita. So when we say that Bhuta gunas run short, actually it is Bhutas which run short. Gunas are always dravyasrita. When there is a shortfall in the availability of a Bhuta or Bhutas, because sometimes one dosha may be manifested from two Bhutas, sometimes one, which we are not going to that details, which everybody knows. So when there is a shortfall of in the availability of the Bhuta or Bhutas, from which a particular dosha is manifested, then that is going to end up in the kshaya of that particular dosha. I'm using the words very carefully. That is the bhutas which manifest from the doshas which manifest from the bhuta, which is not formed from the bhuta, because that understanding is very crucial. We have seen earlier that among doshas, dhatus, and malas, only dhatus are the ones which receives the proper nourishment using the bhutas, which is satyam. Everything else is mithya. Only the dhatus receive the direct nourishment from or the nourishment proper from the bhutas. And the nourishment, if somebody is understanding that way of the doshas and malas, it is mithya. Satyam is that only the dhadus receive the nourishment. So now we were saying that when there is a shortfall in the bhutas or bhuta gunas, which manifest as a dosha, then obviously that dosha is notified as in Kshinavastha. Now we say that only dhadus receive the nourishment proper, not the doshas or malas. So when we say that there is a shortfall in the availability of bhutas, from which a particular dosha is manifested, actually that should be reflecting as dhadus only. What we feel as doshas is mithya. Satyam is only the dhadus receive the sort of nourishment or the nourishment proper. So when there is a shortfall in the bhuta availability, that is a shortfall in nourishment of dhadus. So it will be, or it should be, reflected as dhadukshaya. Again the question comes, then where is doshakshaya? See, the availability of nourishment is primarily targeting the dhadus. I am saying it again and again to establish that concept. But this dhatu nourishment is a very complex procedure, an evolved procedure, where the dhatu and all those things, srodasas, all those things are coming to play. Each dhatu is very unique. That also we have seen in detail. So the making of a dhatu is always a specialty branch. There is one dhatu which is an exception in this regard. Which is that dhatu? That is rasa dhatu. Rasa dhatu can be considered as an assorted or an amorphous or a heterogeneous stuff. Rasa dhatu is an amorphous stuff. It receives the nourishment primarily, even though it is an assorted stuff. That is the one which is receiving the nourishment primarily, and then the rest of the processes of making specific dhadus begin using this rasa dhatu. The changes in other dhadus, whether it is kshaya or vriddhi, all those things are slower to manifest when compared with the rasa dhatu, because still there are processes pending. There are still characters to come, players to come to make it manifested in other dhatus, whereas it is very quick to manifest in rasa dhatu. And the status of bhuda gunas in a particular poshana or meal, hence, is immediately reflected in the rasa dhatu, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an unspecified one or a diffuse one. This immediate reflection in the rasa dhatu is a quick to manifest one. So what happens? Rasa dhatu becomes the platform which is the quickest to reflect the status of bhudas or bhuda gunas in a meal. And thus giving the body an idea about which all bhuta gunas are available in a particular meal, which all dhatus are going to get their share from a meal. It is quickly reflected in the rasa dhatu, making this entire system alert and prepared. This is very important. This quick and non-specific reflection in rasa dhatu will be manifesting immediately in a plane which we can call as the internal milieu or atmosphere of the sharira. If we envisage an internal atmosphere bound by this sharira, the changes in the rasa dhatu happening will be immediately reflected all within this internal atmosphere. And this can be understood immediately as the changes happening in the state of doshas. We find that, see, vayoho ratri bhuktanam tendam adhyadigaha kramad. Vayas, okay, it is a time-taking affair. But in the same day itself, it is happening. Just during the digestion process of a meal, it is happening. These are not vikaras, these are somewhat prakriti or prakrita. And these are reflected immediately in the Rasadhatu, reflecting as changes happening in the status of doshas when the entire internal milieu, the internal atmosphere of a living body is concerned. It is not about, it is going to reflect in the whole spectrum of Dhadu Parinama Krama. It is not getting transferred to the chain of Dhadu Parinama. It is immediately reflected. Ahas, Ratri, Bhuktam, immediate reflections. So, in effect, the status of doshas in a Sharira at any given point of time is the representation of the status of Rasadhatu. The status of doshas at any point of time in a Sharira is the representation of the status of Rasadhatu, and vice versa. That means the status of Rasadhatu in a Sharira at any given point of time will reveal the status of doshas as well. This is very important. Now we have to go further. How this Rasa Dhadu is going to reflect dosha vriddhi and dosha kshaya. And how does it manifest? How it can be taken further forward for a better understanding of pathological processes or sampraptis. So there we will have to understand many other ideas like what are the possibilities of vriddhi and kshaya, whether all vriddhi and kshaya are independent. Similarly, the idea called kledam, and it will gradually be connected to the way in which dravyas are processed and assimilated by a living body. So some amount of dravyadi vijnaniyam will come to it. And how this kleda is becoming a unique identity in the samprapti of many diseases. All these things we will have to understand, which we will discuss in our next session. Thank you for listening. There is one question. Okay, no, it is not a question. Okay, so we wind up. Bhishajam sadhu vrittanam bhadramagamashalinam swabhyasta karmanam bhadram bhadram bhadrabhilashinam. Thank you very much.